So here we are, episode 3. I have been having a great time setting up all the infrastructure. I've crunched the stats, and between YouTube and the podcast feed, there have been so far 4,000 plays of episode 1, which is insane.
That is amazing.
Are we a week into it? That's wonderful.
But do we know, does that include crawlers and things, or do we know they're real downloads?
I think we're okay with this data because it falls off organically. Huge numbers of people listened on day 1 and 2. It has fallen off more organically, whereas a crawler, I would expect periodic or something more like that, and certainly not MP3. Crawling an MP3 is a bit weird, but anyway, the point is that these 4,000 people are incredible. I presume the listener is one of those people. That's astonishing, and I'm very grateful, as I'm sure you are.
Thank you, yes. I never expected it to be as popular as it's been already, with us just being quite amateur. We haven't really figured out the format of the show yet.
I think it's quite nice to figure it out almost with the listener, although in a very one-way relationship there, but we'll figure it out as we go. I've got a bit of housekeeping here. So thanks everyone who commented, been chatting on the Discord. This is all fantastic. The feedback's been wonderful. We are especially grateful to those who've signed up to the Patreon, patreon.com/decapsulate, or it's all on the website. The patrons get, at the moment, early episodes.
The website, by the way, is decapsulate.com, right?
Yes, you're a natural, Robin. You're a natural. You just got to say it all the time. Repetitive, but if we don't do it, who else will? Early episodes. So for example, when this episode drops in the public feed, patrons will have access to episode 4 already.
Yeah.
We've also got a merch store. You go to Decapsulate and click on store. There is exactly one item available for purchasing, and that is the square dashed logo thing. I'm not even sure if it is the exact final design, but what did you say this was going to be, Robin? Like an early...
This is first edition.
Yes. First edition before TRIS'S has quite got the logo symmetrical. I've been learning vector illustration using Inkscape, the fantastic open source tool that is in some ways better than Illustrator. We get almost no commission from this. This is more about a fun thing for the community to do. TeePublic let you set your commission, and I think the base price is already correct for that sort of thing. I've set it as low as possible. To support us, Patreon is the best option. But you also don't need to do a thing. You can just keep listening, keep recommending things to your friends. As I said in episode 1, this is the only way podcasts can work, is word of mouth. There's no algorithms. Although I have now submitted the show to about a dozen different podcast indexes and stores and so forth.
I think we're going to talk about feedback. We're talking about the fact that this is... We're doing this together with the user. I thought that would be a beautiful segue into talking about feedback, because that's how it's two-way.
Right. Well reminded. So there are a few ways you can give us feedback, but the best way for our organization, and so that I see it and Robin sees it and we both can be involved in the conversation, is on the website, decapsulate.com. If you go through to each individual episode, in addition to the full transcript, at the very bottom of the page there is a comment box, but this comment box is powered by GitHub discussions. So this has a huge advantage in that all of the discussion is actually in one place. If you look at the discussions on GitHub, you can search through them, you can attach files, you can write in Markdown, all of the good stuff that we have come to expect from GitHub. But it's also this nice little comment box. And this is powered by Giscus, GISCUS.app, which is an open source GitHub discussions comment system. Really, really happy about that. And most importantly, probably for the listener, this emails me when you comment. Now, it may or may not email Robin. Your notification settings are your own, but I will at least see it.
No, I will make sure I turn on my notifications for it. I hadn't thought of that yet. I'll make sure I do it.
Yeah, selective notifications. I'm a big fan of notifications off by default in general, but turning on very important things like your partner, your teachers, that sort of thing. If you're listening to this, that's how to give us feedback. There were quite a lot of mistakes in the episode 1 video. I used Descript, which is what we're using to record this and do the initial edit, which is a great tool. The problem there is it bakes mistakes into the video and I can't fix them. because YouTube do not let you make changes or re-upload a video. I think it is possible if you're a fancy YouTuber, like millions of subscribers, and you've got a personal connection to a YouTube manager or something, you can beg them to do a re-upload. But that is not for mere mortals like us. I don't know if I've ever told you my theory, Robin, about why YouTube doesn't let you edit videos, which is strange.
No, I don't think so.
We've immediately gone off topic, but I think it'll be interesting to our listeners, at least I hope.
Let's try and keep it short.
Yeah, exactly. We've got stuff to get through. I think the biggest reason that YouTube do not let you edit your videos is not for like fraud reasons, so that you could get a load of videos and then change the video to make it look like people liked something that it wasn't, or anything like that. It is because, as with everything Google do, it all comes back to advertising. The way advertising works in podcasts is that Robin and I could approach a podcast advertising network and they could splice in their adverts into parts of our episodes. I really don't think we will do that for advertising because I personally hate those. I prefer host-read ads. But it is possible to automate this and keep things fresh so that you listen to it one week, you get one ad. You listen to it the next week, you get the more updated ad, which is presumably better for everyone. YouTube runs their own ad platform. And if they let you edit your video, they would let in competing ad platforms. Because you could splice your own ads later on into videos. You see what I mean?
People do put ads in videos anyway, but you're saying they can't be changed after you've put them in.
Yes, that's a big feature of these podcast ad networks, is that they will keep your ads up to date, which increases yield for everyone.
Yeah. I feel that is a problem for podcasting, at least in the way I'd want to do it, because people give over their podcast to these advertising networks to then put these ads in between. And I think often, I particularly listen to quite a lot of leftist political shows.
Space communism shows, yes, I know.
And there's quite a lot of things, like, so I was listening to like the Intercepted podcast, and the only adverts in this podcast at the beginning and the end were two British voiced, and therefore not very clearly not from the original feed, for Starbucks. And a big topic of Intercepted in general is like Gaza and Israel and Palestine and all that kind of stuff. And Starbucks are one of the boycott targets. So it was rather jarring. I sent them an email about it, but you lose control of exactly what adverts are put on your podcast, which concerns me a bit.
I would like to promise to the listener at this stage that we will never do something like that, and we will run host-read ads if and when we're lucky enough to be able to get income through the show. It will be host-read ads by Robin and me from companies that we genuinely love and are not like destroying the planet. And if you disagree, Robin will delete this from the edit and nobody will ever hear this. But I bet you agree.
I certainly agree.
Good. Have I got a great, wonderful little slice of what kind of feels like the cozy internet for you? So I'll start off with some definitions. Digital gardening is a way of working in the open. So instead of working on let's say a blog post for many months and getting it all perfect and then publishing it.
Who could you be referring to?
Anyone could do this. Perfectionism is a great curse in our society. Instead of working on that privately and trying to get it as good as you can, digital gardening is where you work in the open, in a interconnected series of notes, and you potter, by which I mean you do a little here, do a little there. You've got a lot of ideas, a lot of documents, a lot of posts, a lot of thoughts, half done. And you bounce between them, improving them all a little bit.
Yeah, you do a little bit of weeding here. You kind of bend this round so it can just hang on to the vine, to the like trellis a bit better over there. Leave it to grow for a while. Yeah.
It is absolute Hobbit core publishing. Like very cozy, very just a dream. It feels very much like the scrappy websites of old. They were always under construction, weren't they? You never have an under construction website now. It's always, this is my perfect brand. Please subscribe to my Substack. It's very polished and boring. If you were to visit a digital garden like NAMTAO.com, the first thing you'll see is not posts in reverse chronological order, like a blog, if you'll excuse me, like if you go to robinwinslow.co.uk.
Oof. Calling me out, quite like that. Oh,
I'm not saying that is bad. I'm saying you have got a blog whereas a digital garden is a web of linked pages.
Yeah. Very
much like what the web was designed for. The clue is in the name. It's not a timeline, which are, I don't know about you, but I am real tired of timelines these days. But it's more something that you've got to explore. Things aren't super signposted. You might have to go to one page, then another, and then circle back and get lost a little bit. It's not very monetizable. It's not very contenty, but it is lovely. That is Digital Garden. I will make sure in the show notes we've got a link to Maggie Appleton's page on the history and ethos of the digital garden, I believe is what that is called. Digital gardening. There's a lot of videos on YouTube of people who have taken up digital gardening who were inspired by Maggie's amazing blog post. In it, she very cleverly signposts how finished each page on her site is by describing them as seedlings, ideas that have been planted, buds, the seeds that have started sprouting, and trees, maybe fully formed ideas.
This is so amazing. This is like exactly what I need.
I knew it would be. That's why I brought it here for you. So this is lovely. This is exactly what you want. And it fits really nicely into Obsidian. NAMTAO.com is based on the Obsidian Digital Garden plugin, which lets you put in the front matter a checklist that says, hey, publish this page. And then handles all of the linking, uploading of images. And it even supports like mermaid diagrams and, incredibly, Obsidian Data View, which is a third-party plugin, not core to Obsidian, but it might as well be core to Obsidian. It's very nice. Perhaps I'll find a few other examples of digital gardens.
So, sorry, what's the relationship between NAMTAO.com and Obsidian?
NAMTAO.com is created from Markdown documents inside my Obsidian vault.
But it's not, I mean, it's created from Markdown documents in the same way that any static site is. Is there like tech, like as in from that Markdown that leads to the website? Does that share anything with Obsidian, or is it just two different systems based on the same Markdown?
It's extremely deeply integrated. There is an Obsidian plugin called Digital Garden.
Right.
It just gives you like a command in Obsidian to publish single pages or all pages that have the checkbox DG publish in the metadata. And this pushes up to GitHub using the GitHub API, not using Git, the command line.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the GitHub API to directly add these files to the repo. This is clever because it means it works on mobile where you don't have access to the Git client. So it uses the GitHub API to push these files there. And then on the GitHub side, there is a GitHub action, which crunches those Markdown files into a website like any other static site generator. It's just that these are designed to work together. You just clone and copy their repo and just get going. So the advantage of this over a more traditional static site generator is that in a traditional static site generator, you can have unpublished Markdown, but it has to be in the GitHub repo. It might have a little checklist that says, this is a draft, but it's still in public. People can still look at it on the GitHub repo. But with the Digital Garden plugin, you keep all your notes private in your Obsidian Vault, which can be private on Dropbox using Obsidian Sync, whatever you like, and you only push the documents as you want to make them public.
Sorry, so not by putting them in a folder?
No, by putting this front matter property called DG-publish.
Right.
And
it's the ticking of that, and that's what puts it in Git.
Exactly. So it's just what I was looking for, because I want all of NAMTAO.com, which has my video scripts and everything, including lost terminal scripts, lost terminal characters, like everything. It's the whole thing for all of my projects. I want those to also be on GitHub in Markdown that people can give me pull requests for if I make mistakes or if they want to improve them or whatever. But I also wanted privacy, because this is just my normal vault. With Obsidian, one of the big rules that I learned very early on is don't have multiple vaults. Have one vault and figure it out.
Yeah.
Because interlinking is what we're doing here. I didn't really expect such a strong reaction from you, Robin, but I'm delighted because this, in hindsight, this is exactly what you need, right?
Well, I was finding it quite funny when you said because it uses the GitHub API, therefore it works on mobile. And it might seem like such a trivial point unless you've tried to do this thing of to, like, I don't know, blog on the train on your phone or whatever. It's so important. It's such a centrally important feature. I can't even, anyway, sorry. How long have you been keeping this from me?
maybe 6 months. I can only apologize.
I can't believe it.
Look, it actually gets better.
Not acceptable.
Because the heading I've got for this section is digital gardening and Zettelkasten. So I've realized that they are the same thing. I don't think I am the first person to figure this out.
Yes.
But they are extremely compatible. Because in Zettelkasten, you take your fleeting notes and thoughts, ideas that you've had while reading or listening or watching something, and you process them into permanent notes, sometimes called atomic notes. And these are single units of teachable knowledge. And let me have a look at my atomic notes. So I've got an atomic note that says, using Copilot GPT to automate the easy stuff is the opposite of doing code cutters. And that sort of single thread, that single idea, struck out of some ideas I had whilst watching some videos or reading stuff or just like doing the dishes or whatever. And I filtered it through and made this atomic note. Now that is not a blog post, but it also is something that I was happy enough to post on Mastodon, perhaps a month or so ago. And so there's something between a thought that you have had and a blog post. And sometimes that's
a microblog post.
Exactly. So there's this continuum. And I think that you don't actually need to post these things on Twitter or Mastodon. You could have them on your digital garden ready for people to browse through. If you're happy with these atomic ideas, and they're not too private, but if they're well fleshed out and you've got some references, as usually happens when you're making these robust atomic notes, they're naturally branched, they're naturally linking to each other. They flow through and ideas string themselves together, and you get like a sequence of atomic notes that build upon each other. Let's look at that atomic note. Using Copilot to automate the easy stuff is the opposite of doing code casters. I've got a note before that says AI can only reduce complexity. And those that are linked, threaded through. And so that one idea follows another. And they eventually, if I kept adding on thoughts to this string of ideas, this string of atomic notes, if I kept stringing more and more together, I might eventually have a video script or a blog post idea. This is literally how my last AI video happened. I just had these little ideas that came together and I developed them. And I built them into atomic notes that I was pretty pleased with. They seemed to stand alone on their own. And I strung them together. And eventually I had the outline of my script, AI is not for you, which is a few videos ago. And it feels like I could probably do this in public, in my digital garden. I could publish my atomic notes with links between them, and people could browse around and find a little bit of meaning for themselves, should they wish to.
Yeah, this is what I've always wanted to do, and somehow I've never found the structure that supports it-ish. Like, I'm not very private, and I don't really want to be very private, and I believe in openness, and I would love it if... And I think also you don't need to, in general, you don't really need to be scared of putting things out there, because a lot of people who don't publish, and this might be a thing that changes with the new TikTok generation or whatever, but like, people who don't publish can be very, very scared of outputting anything at all. But when you actually start to do it, I think you realize that there's so much information out there that nobody cares, like predominantly nobody cares. Like you have to be quite known or saying something interesting in some way for anybody to care, right? So for the most part, it's inconsequential. And so you don't need to be scared of it. So I would love to be able to do exactly what you're saying and throw up small thoughts, have a structure for them to be drawn together into larger thoughts. Something that I think possibly would distress me when you try and turn it into a website is like, in Obsidian, obviously I can create whatever mess I like because it's only for me to come back to, right?
Yes.
Online, I feel a certain obligation to try and avoid link rot, right? If I had a fleeting thought that I throw up in some place that you can find through looking through my website, and then someone finds it and they find it interesting, but then later I want to evolve it into something a bit bigger, and so therefore I might turn that into this other thing, and that old thing might be gone. Now it's a 404, right?
I've got an answer for you.
That would concern me.
I've got an answer for you. If you're using a robust tool like Obsidian, it renames links as you rename pages. And I admit that doesn't solve deleting a page. You'll then end up with a broken link there. But it's not without a modicum of control. Having a 404 when I delete a page, that's actually very normal. You're worried about...
Well, it should be a 410, for sure.
Right. You're worried about it like somehow links breaking when you move things around. Obsidian solves that by keeping all links working.
Does it? As in, it's not on Obsidian, like what did you call it? Is it called Digital Garden?
It's just called the Digital Garden plugin.
It's the Digital Garden plugin that's going to have to take care of it, because something has to be listening for requests and turn them into 302s or 301s, right? Like that. Obsidian doesn't do that.
What the plugin does is every time you publish, it uses all of the links as they are currently in your Obsidian Vault. So if the links in your Obsidian Vault are still working, they will still work on the website. So
I'm not expecting links to break. What I'm saying is bookmarks will break.
Ah, I see. So if I move something around, if I change its name, somebody will link to my site and it will no longer be there.
Or Google.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So there are two ways to think about this. The first one is that there's a method in, just like in many static site generators, you can throw something into the front matter that says link slug or link URL or whatever. And then you've got yourself a permanent link. So no matter where you change, that's all fine. Problem solved. The second option is that the very nature of the Digital Garden is that things are a little bit in flux. But because we're not separating this out into a thing that is all public and a thing that is all private, because it's blended, we have got a much more granular way of doing things. If you go to namtao.com and the first option is no boilerplate, and if you click read more, the URL is namtao.com/NB. My Digital Garden, my Obsidian note for that is not called NB. It's called something like no boilerplate home. But I've got this permalink called NB. And then in the video section, I've got some of my videos listed. Each of those videos also has a permalink because I think I'm very likely to link to those from outside. But if you go back into something more relaxed like Lost Terminal, everything under, so Lost Terminal is namtao.com/LT. That's a permalink, but everything under it is dynamic because I want the freedom to just move things around, change characters' names, change where people live, change the whole topography of it. But you'll still be able to go to the Lost Terminal section of my garden because I've made a little, I don't know what the metaphor should be, a stone archway that says abandon or hope.
Yeah.
No, the opposite. Get some hope. So it's read more under the Lost Terminals section on the front page. If you click read more at the bottom of that green
I go to home. So it's the read more and the fact that you've got an LT / which you're saying is the archway. And then you're saying within this, things move around, which means that if I click on LT season 08 or I'm trying to figure out what I could. Okay, so you've got a note, you've got a character note section, right? So if I clicked on one of these, for example, and tier or whatever, and which is empty, for example, but let's say you'd written a few sentences in there, but then you decide to change her name, you're just saying there's no promise that you'd necessarily find that it was here if you came back here.
I'm saying that there is a granular promise.
Yeah.
You can expect my garden to have a Lost Terminal section. In 10 years' time, you can very reasonably visit my house, come into my garden, and say, oh, I remember this Lost Terminal section. It's the same place that I remember it, but look at all these new flowers you've planted. And some of those old flowers, some of those old shrubs have moved.
Yeah.
Where's that old oak tree? Oh, you cut it down. I know that cool URLs don't change, but there is got to be some granularity to that binary.
Well, I suppose it's me trying to recognize, because I love HTTP, I love the internet, I love the fundamental standards of the internet, and I suppose I feel like spiritually what you're describing here is a bit the essence of what we think the internet should be. Like, as in, the pure internet is the one where people are represented by their own domains rather than through some conglomerate. In those domains, they have freedom of expression. You get to come along and experience the things that they want to put out there freely, because I feel like the core standards of the internet and this idea of your own digital garden of self-expression are so overlapping. Like, that's what the internet's there to enable. I'm trying to therefore reconcile some of the standards with this vision. But I think you're right that it's probably just that I'm being too precious about broken links. There are ones that you can rely on, and there are ones you can't. And obviously you can make your 404 page helpful, right? So I think it's a point that we don't need to focus on anymore. But I that's where my mind went. But
one of the things that you might be able to do is advance the signposting of each, because currently I'm breaking a rule of digital gardening that I've not signposted which of these pages are in progress and which of these progress are more like are buds or seedlings or trees, or I forget exactly. So you could say when it is at the highest level of confidence, it gets a permalink.
Yeah, like a tree with it's a good metaphor because a tree you don't expect to disappear. It's like, chopping down a tree is kind of sacrilege.
Yes. The tree is going to survive a hurricane, potentially.
Yeah, might not that. But
maybe, yeah, a storm, certainly.
Yeah.
Drought, perhaps. Yeah, exactly. I need like it.
Yeah, I do, and I will be playing with it. I'm also not very happy with the fact that my blog is a completely inaccessible chronological list. And I think it should be much more thematic. And it doesn't need to be neat. Like, it could absolutely just be, I want you to be able to meander through it by topic. And I just haven't made it like that because in a way, I'm a bit too vain. Like, I was really proud of the styling of my blog because it's supposed to be elegant and usable, straightforward. And like the text is big enough. It doesn't use more colors than it needs, but it's trying to be elegant and make it as easy to read the content and access the content as possible. I think in that mission, it's a bit like also the thing that blocks me from throwing content up because I'm being too perfectionist about it. That's why it's not messy in the way that I think actually would be a much better representation of me. So I hope I will find the time quite soon to recraft my blog as a digital garden because I love the idea. I haven't forgiven you for keeping it from me for 6 months.
I'm so sorry. It's pretty cool. Like every morning I do 2 hours of pottering before I get into my lost terminal writing. I literally very often will wake up before my alarm really excited to go do that. Because I've blended my Zettelkasten knowledge base, my project management, and my digital garden all into one thing. And it's like I'm going to be working on all of this at the same time without any real goal, but just knowing that I'm increasing the progress on lots of little things that are important to my life in this system. It's just the best thing ever.
That's amazing. If you succeed in turning me into a sort of constant gardener of my website, I feel a bit like you'll have saved my life. Like, I feel like I don't have I don't have the space, the freedom to just explore in that way. And everything is, I would love that. If I could just go and spend half an hour wandering through my web garden and pruning it and helping a bit grow here every day, that would be amazing.
There we go. We'll see how much of that we're comfortable keeping in, but that was lovely. Let's press on.
Okay.
Tell me about TESCREAL.
TESCREAL, yes. It's a little bit of an ungainly title for a topic. So, do you know fundamentally who Timnit Gebru is?
No.
You may do when I explain who she is. Timnit Gebru she worked for Google and she was in the AI safety, I think. And she published a paper, which is the stochastic parrots paper. Have you heard of the term stochastic parrots? It's a description of LLM generative AI systems.
Of course it is. Yeah, that makes sense.
So the paper basically says that AI is harmful. She was making some points about safety and things that Google should focus on, and she was fired. She very cleverly sort of made use of fired by Google in her personal branding, I think.
That'll do it.
But she set up a research company after that, and then she worked with this philosopher called Emile, I don't know how to pronounce it, P. Torres, and they came up with this term, TESCREAL. So I think why this is interesting is because you have to ask yourself, given that AI has had many different meanings, but at the moment is these generative sort of LLM-based algorithms, if you understand how incapable they are of solving many of the problems that people claim that they can solve, you have to ask yourself the question, how come so many incredibly wealthy investors have put so much money into developing these AI systems? What is it that leads to that happening? Like, why was this an obsession of Silicon Valley? Why did people represent such a significant fantasy that then diverted trillions and trillions of dollars and completely transformed the American economy through doing that, based on the production of systems which were not going to get anywhere near delivering on their stated.
Right.
And so to answer that question, they've gone and explored the ideology of the people who might invest, of the AI believers, the AI boosters, and particularly the AI investors. And so I suppose this is the reveal. TESCREAL stands for transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, cosmism, rationalism, rationalist ideology, effective altruism, and long-termism. And what they draw out through this paper, which I'd recommend if anybody is actually interested enough to read it, it is an easy to read paper. It's very well written and it's not long. But it lays out the links between all of these overlapping ideologies and how they lead together, how significant advocacy or belief in these ideologies is the through line that links all of the different AI boosters who have pushed the idea that we are heading for an AI apocalypse, or that the AI is this powerful thing that's going to take over the world, that we really need to, or that it's going to transform, or it's going to be the thing that's inevitably going to transform humanity and save all the lives. Like all these people who are pushing all of those fantasies that really cannot flow from if you understand what in fact an LLM-based generative algorithm is, right?
Yes, autocorrect trained on the internet.
Right. This bucket of ideologies is what pushes it, and you can trace it all the way through. So the word that draws all these ideologies together, you could say, is eugenics, because it's basically an idea that you can craft yourself through whatever mechanisms, through manipulating things. You're trying to build yourself a sort of perfect model human, or a perfect model being that's able to like transcend humanity. Yeah. And it's similar to what eugenicists would have been doing with the Aryan race in Nazi Germany. There was a long history of eugenics thought before that. Eugenics was the idea that there was racial traits and racial superiority was held as a scientific truth for a surprising amount of the 20th century, right? Not just focused around the 1930s. I'd say extending significantly beyond. And it sort of infected the way that people thought about lots of different things. But this is the thread that ties it all together. So firstly, I think it's really interesting to ask that question, like what happened in humanity that led to so much investment of such a significant sum of all of the product of humanity being invested in this complete fantasy. Right? Like, I think that's a really interesting question to ask. And then I think the answer is really interesting, that these ideas really overlap and they're all linked, and they're linked through this belief that you can transcend all of the flaws of humanity in this like creation. And they just believe in that so strongly that they will look for evidence and they will find every opportunity to reinforce it without asking too many questions. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I think it's really amazing.
That, I admit, I don't know very much about this entire space, other than the small bits about transhumanism and what were the other bits that...
Do you know effective altruism, long-termism? Well,
yes, like it was easier to imagine helping a future person than actually give money to a homeless person today. I don't think of them particularly highly.
Yes.
The effective altruism.
Well, this is the thing.
That crypto bro.
The journey of effective altruism, I think, is fascinating and it's significantly based around Sam Bankman-Fried, is that his name, I think, right?
Yes, not the best poster child for it.
No, right. Yeah. But like effective altruism in its founding, I think, was at least interesting. So I can't remember his full name, but there's a guy called Peter someone who's like a philosopher. I think he was probably at Oxford or something like that. And he's sort of the founder or one of the fathers of this movement. And he's basically saying, if you really try and quantify your altruism, then you'll see that you might think that you could help a homeless person in your city, but if you live in the West and you send that money to Africa, you could save way more lives. That's quite an interesting basis. So that's where you start. If we were to follow that through and we were to calculate the different ways in which we could actually increase the way that we could help people, then that would be better because we could work out how to help more people. The thing is, that then led, like where that led is insane. So the first insane place is that people start to say, and this is what Sam Bankman-Fried did, I think, I'm going to get a job in finance so I can make more money and then I can give it away.
Yes.
And now and that then obviously led to basically the most egregious and largest version. What's the right term? I don't know if money laundering is the right term, but it's
fraud, was it?
It is fraud, but it's like this, the inventing of money, the passing around between companies that are supposed to be independent. They're like, yeah, just like writing fake numbers into books. It's exactly all the same stuff that like Enron was doing in the 90s.
Is that securities fraud?
Probably. Yeah, they certainly would have been doing securities fraud, but like all of this stuff was justified in his mind, I think, because I'm a good place to be given a lot of money because I'm going to be giving it away. And I think he did give a lot of money away to some good causes, but it would be arguable whether they were better causes than like other people with the money might have given it to. So I don't know. But like that the first thing is this idea that you can therefore get like one of the most unethical jobs just because you're making a lot of money and then you give it away as like a way to do good, which seems pretty suspect to me in the first place. But then obviously the other place EA goes, which is just absolutely nuts, is the idea of future, as you say, future lives versus present lives. Like, we're going to imagine some kind of future where there's a lot more humans and those ones would be hurt by this thing. And they don't turn it to climate change. This is the really mind-boggling thing. So they don't use it as an argument for climate change. They use it as an argument for why they have to explore interplanetary travel. Or again, AI, right? We need AI because it'll save us from climate change. I guess there might be a bit of a climate change argument there, but you do it through AI. Like the only way to solve climate change is to invest in AI, I think. Have you heard that argument?
I have not. I would not believe it if somebody made it to me.
It exists. This is definitely an argument that people make.
It does seem it's the perfect ethos for an investor for whom every tomorrow is worth the unethical practices of today. Like it lines up perfectly with being somebody who just wants to see the number go up. And if someone's telling you that, oh, that's ethical, marvelous. What a dream.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for them.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly right. I think what's interesting about this paper as well is that she's saying like on the left, where we recognize that capitalism is destructive, right? Easy, therefore, to say everything is the fault of capitalism. So all these people who are doing toxic things, they're doing it because they're driven by a profit motive. Now, I don't think that's true, because I think that once you get beyond a certain level of wealth, the wealth no longer may matter to you in some small time way. Like you might want to keep your status as a trillionaire, right? So that you don't lose face against your buddy you're competing with or whatever, right? But broadly speaking, that's not your big driver. Your big driver is something else. It's something ideological, right? It's not, I'm just doing everything because it makes me more money. I think you will inevitably be trying to make more money because you like employ people who make sure that that's going to be the case and whatever, and they make smart investments. So what you're saying about being able to make an argument through effective altruism about investment, I think is right. Like about it being good investment, it is right. But I think the thing about TESCREAL is it explains the really impactful thing is these are the people that have all the money, that have all the power, and their actual driver is something else, right? So like, what is their actual driver? And these are trying to sort of draw that out. Do you see what I mean?
It does. It sounds like I should read the paper to find that out. It does. It draws a thread between all of these different kinds of people and explains what links them all and what motivates all of these different groups. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically saying they're overlapping. It's saying that there's actually a bit of a journey between them. But if you look at some of the people you might draw out, so you've got obviously SBF, you've got Sam Altman, you've got Jeffrey Hinton, you've got like all these AI boosters. If you inspect their ideologies, you find that they include some subset of this bucket and they overlap quite significantly. And they evidence this, I think. They put it quite clearly to show that these are defining beliefs of the set of people that are responsible for this direction in technology investment.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the topic. I find it fascinating. I bring it to you, I suppose, a little bit because I feel like, broadly speaking, it's my kind of thing and not your kind of thing. But I want to see how interested you are in it, because I love sociology and philosophy and ideas and ideologies, and also, I guess, bad people, understanding the things that harm us or lead us astray. Yeah.
I have been very interested in. Thank you very much for explaining this to me, and I hope some of our listeners will find it useful as well. The thing that I am left with is that it's wild they didn't want to solve climate change. Like it's such a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. As an overall statement, that might not be fair. It's just that there might be people there that really care about it. But, SBF probably cared about it. It's just the way that he would want to go about it is suspect. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough really to comment.
I mean, certainly you don't need to invest in space travel.
Yeah, certainly.
At all. Like there is a very clear order of things to fix, and space travel is not on that list.
Yeah.
It's like, that is not to say that weather satellites are not very useful in combating climate change, but like space tourism, probably not.
Well, certainly. No, but it's the idea of planetary escape, isn't it? It's the idea that one version, I suppose it's like, if you try and map this out, and this is what these clever people do in their clever brains, right? Is you're like, look, let's say there's a 30% chance that we fail to save the planet and climate change destroys it and makes it completely uninhabitable, right? Clearly, it's an ethical good to save the human race. So therefore, we should be investing some amount of money in the ability to move to Mars. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, it's a preposterous argument. Mars is not very habitable. No. Like, we're now in my wheelhouse because we're talking about a post-environmental apocalypse, which is all I write about in Lost Terminal. I do a huge amount of research to try and make it right. Even like the most grim, awful predictions don't involve the planet not having any oceans. Mars doesn't have any oceans. Even if there is a catastrophe, like it's actually the opposite problem. The ocean is going to bring the party to us. It's not that the ocean is going to go away. It's going to have too much ocean.
Yeah.
Like in Lost Terminal, in my story, 10 meters sea level rise is what I chose in 2020. That was a wildly optimistic thing in hindsight. Actually, we're like, that would be if every country immediately changed what they were doing and focused on climate change, we might only have 10 meters of sea level.
Oof, that's a fact to drop, isn't it?
I'm sorry. I especially am sorry for our Dutch listeners. When I think Amsterdam is 3 meters below sea level, it's going to be a bad time for our Dutch friends, which is especially sad because I believe that the Netherlands on the whole are amazing at investing in good climate policies and so forth. Certainly, they've got the first iron-powered brewery. So it's like carbon neutral because they're burning iron. I cannot go off topic about how much I love the Netherlands. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, it's nice. I think it brings a little bit of wholesomeness to my topic.
No, we should just like solve climate change.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like what you're saying is yes, obviously we need to solve climate change if we're going to stay here, but also the best solving of climate change still means we're going to have massive challenges in terms of environmental changes. And so therefore we have to solve climate change and work out how to deal with the changing environment.
Having Planet 2 is a great idea. That doesn't remove Planet 1, right? Like Planet 1 will still exist in this hypothetical utopia where we've become a multi-planet species. Like the solution is not ignore the first planet with conservatively 10 billion people on. That doesn't sound good, but it does sound good to the kind of person who imagines themselves going to Planet 2.
The thing that I think is common, the through line is that it's the fantasy of it. Like I've always been struck by this. The people who claim to be our smartest, leaders, right, have such a huge fantasy element to them. You know what I mean? They're imagining all sorts of nonsense and then trying to make the world make that true for them, which is why I think the ideology thing is such a good point. It's like the ideologies are so defining. I mean, I found this in the way that like Elon Musk complains about population decline in the US, but none of his solutions make any sense. It's so hard to figure out why the hell these people who presumably have an education and claim to be really smart can continually seem to be making such obvious logical errors if you know what you're talking about. Musk says loads of stuff that like loads of people think is really smart and they think he's a genius until you're actually an engineer. It's like that thing about, if you read an article in a publication in your area, you realize how inaccurate it is. And then everything else you hear, you think it's accurate still, right? Like,
yes, that's the Gell-Mann amnesia effect.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what baffles me about like...
Is it really baffling, or is it that people will latch onto an ideology that already confirms what they already know to be true? Like if you've got a religion that says that you're okay, you're born into the right thing, you're the right people, you've got the right tribe, people who are outside your tribe are wrong, that's extremely persuasive, that's extremely easy to be lulled into. And if you've got something like effective altruism, which confirms your existing belief that you shouldn't pay anyone anything. You should try to squeeze everyone around you for all the money and you save it all. That's perfectly aligned because you will perhaps notionally save the money for some hypothetical future where you'll be able to save a billion people. And therefore what you're doing is ethical. That's extremely convenient that it aligned with the values you already had. You didn't have to change your mind about anything.
Yeah. But the thing about, I don't think following the money gets you there is because the fundamental thing about AI is that so many people have invested so much in hopeless dead ends, right? Like that's the thing about it is like Elon Musk said, the only possible way to justify Tesla's share price is if become self-driving cars, right? That would explode the company's value and the share price would be justified. So the only reason why people therefore pay that amount in Elon Musk's whatever is because they believe that might happen or that will happen. And it's not going to.
No, is this a post hoc argument? It's just like circular argument. It's rubbish.
Yeah.
We must close this topic down, and I will finish by looping us back to the idea of Planet 2, space exploration, and so forth. I forget who said this. Everybody should go to space. Not everyone should return.
So we'll go from a conversation about terrible things to do with AI into good AI, I believe, is what you're going to tell us about, isn't it, Tris?
Yes, and I do hope the listeners stick with me for this. Don't immediately turn off. It should be very obvious by now that I am an extreme AI skeptic. I made a t-shirt that said, don't talk to me about AI. It should be very, very obvious. However, there are plenty of good uses for large language models, and they're all to do with very specific language features and so forth. Here is one that was impressed upon me by Amos. I'm sure they won't mind me saying this. Amos from Faster Than Lime. Really good YouTuber and much better than I article writer. And now my collaborator. Amos did a little bit of tweaking of the website whilst I could see their shared screen. And what Amos was doing was using the Z editor combined with Copilot, like you can do, and did a little bit of what we would call derogatorily vibe coding on website. These were like some low-level tweaks, like change this name everywhere, like small refactorings. Like Amos doesn't need AI to code. But this was like just, we were doing something else, and this was a really low priority thing. So fine, not my cup of tea, but it was okay. Here's where it astounded me. Amos was using voice typing to instruct Copilot inside of Z what to do. And this made me realize that actually there is a good use here.
Can I jump in for a second and ask a point of clarification?
Please.
I know what Copilot is. I know what voice is. What's Z?
Z is a relatively modern new programming editor. It's got the two main features that come to the front of my mind when I think about Z is one, it's not written in HTML and Electron like VS Code is. It's written in native Rust, which makes it extremely fast. Like you think VS Code is nippy enough, but that's because we're used to it. The speed is a feature. Okay. The second one is that it's AI first. It's kind of why I didn't really take it seriously because, as I've said, I'm an AI skeptic. But the ability for you to say things like, change all of these functions so that they're wrapped in this other module, and then go. If I was typing that, it's less compelling because I'm having to type into an AI coding chat box. But if I'm speaking that, suddenly we're doing something that I couldn't do. And what that thing is, program using my voice. This is something that recently has become all too important for me as I get RSI, which is that ligament problem you have where typing hurts. It's like carpal tunnel, that sort of thing. Last year, maybe 2 years ago, I got RSI in my fingers, hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, both sides, because I was doing too much, perhaps pottering in my digital garden. I'm joking. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that I was working for 18 hours all day, every day, because I was self-employed, and you can just blur the lines between business and pleasure. And I really just loved what I was doing. So it seemed like pleasure until 6 months in, my body was like, hey, bro, we're not doing this anymore. So I'm doing much better because I've been lifting weights. That's my tip for anyone listening, is just go to the gym, lift some weights, buy some weights, lift them. That's it. That's all you need to do. At least it worked for me. I'm not a doctor.
Is the RSI in the wrist? Or where is it?
Fingers, hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, bilateral. Catastrophic, both sides whole arm.
Oh, wow.
Like I've got tennis elbow and wrist and finger problem. Like it happened all at once because my body was like, hey, you're not listening to us, so we're going to set everything on fire. Please stop working so hard.
Wow.
Yeah, real nightmare. It is not an overstatement or an exaggeration to say that my ADHD meds gave me RSI. Nobody should take away that you shouldn't take ADHD meds or that they are dangerous, but the line is very clear. ADHD meds allow you to work and focus on what you would like a little easier. That's wonderful. But what I wanted to do was sit in front of my computer 18 hours a day and type. And that is a real problem. Do be careful, everyone. Don't be stupid like your Uncle Tris.
I feel like I could divert into a topic of psychology that I'm very interested in, but I won't do it. We can talk about it at another time.
Write it in our notes right now, Robin. Type it in, put them in for the next time. So I will turn to Zed and Copilot and voice typing. Here I had something that I could continue programming and hell, probably anything, any kind of text. I wasn't using, it's a tool that you don't need to use the generative part of it. You can be extremely prescriptive, but it's a human computer interface. We already had solved voice recognition. Like in the 90s, voice recognition had got to the point where it was great. And we've now solved the comprehension for simple things. You can't, with Copilot, get it to do complex work, complex refactoring. Once your program gets to a certain level of complexity, I have been extremely unimpressed with what I've seen. But I'm not talking about that. Those are the problems. If things break down at high levels of complexity, but I'm not trying to replace that. I'm just trying to replace typing for the days when I can't type. Now, those are few and far between these days, but being really prescriptive and saying things like, those 3 paragraphs, move them down 5 lines, comment them all out. This would be too low level if you were to do this like day to day. This is not what people want with vibe coding. They want, make me a website that does X. Really high level, maximum result. And that doesn't work very well, at least after the first prototype. Once you start refining, nightmare. Because you're getting more specific and less general. And LLMs love being general and hate being specific because they've not been trained on specifics. Or rather, they have been trained on specifics, but they've averaged it out and ground it down into this perfect sphere of unimpressive bullshit. But if you're being very specific, it's like having that intern who doesn't really know anything about what they're doing, but they're very enthusiastic and they will try to help you wherever they can. For somebody who can't type, that is genius.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very, very useful thing to be aware of. Generally, many ways in which LLMs are genuinely a useful technology, and we mustn't forget that. They just have to be used with an awareness of what they are and what they can do, and not with any fantasies or overestimations of that, where we sort of trust them to do things that they are not appropriate for. But this is a great example.
Yeah, I hope we do see more and more companies bringing out tools that use the good parts of LLMs, which is language, rather than the other stuff.
Yes, and focus generally on accessibility and helping assistive tools. That would be lovely. Any day now, I'm sure they're going to start doing that.
Any day now.